What would I do if I started a business today, a side hustle on the side of my regular job? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Erkka Suvanto. Some of you call me EJ. I'm the guy on social media who wants to build a legacy for his kids and pass on all the life and business lessons that I have collected over the years. A side hustle, what does it mean in practice? What would I personally do if I now today, in today's economy, in 2024, wanted to start a side business, hoping that it would someday turn into a full-time business for me and my family potentially? Before we go there, before we go dig deeper, let's look at trends. What are the trends in today's marketplace? Number one, it's never been easier to start a business. The cost has never been lower or the risk level. So that's number one. 100 years ago, by the way, we all would have needed to save 15 years to start a business. Not to mention the bureaucracy and the complexity to start a business. Loss of business would have meant loss of house, loss of face and credibility, so all gone. Nowadays, so much easier, and the attitudes towards entrepreneurship are much more positive. So number one, never been easier. This is the golden opportunity for entrepreneurship. We briefly already touched upon the second point, that entrepreneurship today is popular. It was different 20 or 30 years ago. It wasn't the pop thing like it is today. Now kids are flipping items on eBay, setting up ice cream shops all over the town and doing entrepreneurial things. It's mostly driven by technology. Kids have options nowadays. When I started my summer jobs when I was 16, 17, 18, I basically went to the local equivalent of Walmart or Costco to stock items or do something else that was a low pay, a similar job. Nowadays, young people, they have options. They can post videos on social media. They can monetize that. Like I said, they can flip items on eBay. They can go to flea markets, buy low, sell high. There are plenty of options nowadays, mostly driven by technology. Which brings me to my third point. Technology has pretty much disrupted all industries, all businesses. If we look at some of the latest success stories in the marketplace, whether it's Airbnb, Netflix, or Uber, they all have revolutionized the businesses they have started to play in. And that happened very quickly. So that's something to keep in mind when we are now going to talk about starting a side hustle or maybe even a full-time business. I have a 6-step program for you, or a roadmap to follow when it comes to starting a business. Let's get right into it. So, topic number one. Let's start by asking ourselves, what are we good at? Let's assume that I have that full-time corporate job. I'm in accounting or I'm in finance. Is that something I truly enjoy? Maybe that's where my expertise is. But maybe on the side, during my free time, I'm a great photographer. That's my passion. So we should be asking ourselves, are we going to do it the easy way? Or are we going to follow our interests and our passions? But question number one, what are we good at? What are we good at? And then also, what are our interests? And maybe most importantly, what is that we are willing to do for free the first 12 months? That's how we test our true incentives and motivation. Because that's what it most likely is going to take. Free, without salary, without anything for the full year. When I started my business, it took me 6 months. I worked like crazy. It was a hustle, it was a grind. But luckily, or because of my actions, I was able to start monetize my business after 6 months. But I was fully prepared for a full calendar year. But I think that's a good rule of thumb to understand that it might take a full year. And that's where the going gets tough normally. if we have that 8 to 5, 9 to 5 full-time job, and then we start something on the side. Those hours in the evening, early in the morning, over the weekends are hard, especially if we have a family. Going to topic number 2. Especially if we are starting, we don't want to necessarily start an oil refinery business or something that is very capital intensive, so to say, a very high barrier to enter that market. So we want to pick something easier. Pick a business or an industry with a low barrier of entry. And coming back to technology that I mentioned on the first page, if we think about it, many industries have been revolutionized completely by technology. There are still a few left that I will cover briefly in a second, but there are still a few left that have not been yet influenced by technology that much. But if we think about what technology today enables, going back to about low barrier of entry. So technology, online services, for instance, digital creation can be done with very marginal cost nowadays. What I'm doing here in my tiny little studio office space basically doesn't cost me anything. I have my phone, I have a tripod, pay for the whiteboard and the paper, I have a marker. So the cost of producing content is very cheap today. And most importantly, distribution and delivery on the internet, on social media, using the mobile devices is completely free. So the combination of low barrier of entry plus technology enables us to start something without heavy investments in equipment, office space, capital, people, all of that. So we can basically do something on the side relatively easily. So now coming back to my promise about what are the industries that have not yet been impacted by technology that much. So those industries typically, what they have in common is that they are heavily subsidized by governments. Education is one. Here in Nordic countries where I live right now, education is free. Well, it's not free, it's covered through taxation. In the US, there are 0% interest student loans. And the government subsidy, the government intervention is basically slowing down the innovation in that marketplace. There are other industries too, but education is something that everybody understands. So I'll give you a couple of numbers, a little sidetrack that hopefully puts things into perspective, and I'll tie this back to starting a business and how we can actually make something happen in this education space as well. So if we look at education overall as a global business, it's a 10 trillion US dollar market, of which the United States, I don't unfortunately have any other country numbers, but US is roughly $1.3 trillion. And the makeup of the 1.3 is roughly this. 850 billion is the so-called formal education, and roughly 250 billion is the e-learning. Okay? So far so good. But the more interesting part of this is that the e-learning grows 20% year over year. Sorry about my handwriting, it's terrible. And the formal education is declining by 6%. So there's a huge difference. The other one is growing dramatically and the other one is not. And why is that? As I mentioned a few minutes ago, cost of creating content is very low and the distribution and delivery is free. That makes it possible that in the education space, mostly YouTube, those people who can teach niche skills are getting a greater and greater piece of the pie. Whereas the formal education, as we all know, if we talk about the United States now, inflation has dramatically, and I mean, not just the last couple of years, but the cost of education has gone up dramatically. And there are many people who believe that they start to question whether that big investment into a 4-year college degree is worth the investment actually. So yes, we have covered this in my previous videos too. Yes, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, a nurse, teacher, you need that formal education. Nothing wrong with that. Education overall is always the best investment in our own future, but it can be done in many ways. My point here is that if I wanted to become a businessman, let's say I wanted to become a personal trainer and start my own business, so become a business person, but then be, specialize heavily into that fitness space, or start my own gym, for instance. Would I be better off if I went to the school for personal trainers? Somebody putting together a very niche, tailor-made, targeted online course, comprehensive course that covers everything about the training, the business side of it, the bookkeeping, the numbers and everything? Or would a generic, let's say, business school be a better option for me? Go to business school first and then start a gym or start a personal training business, or maybe go to a physical education school as an example. So I would argue that if entrepreneurship is your path, then this online education, the e-learning part that's growing heavily now in the US, would be a very viable path. Anyhow, how is this tied back to point number 2? So education is something, I'm doing education in my own way. I'm a very tiny fish in a relatively large lake, so to say. So I have my very, very, very tiny piece of the pie right now. But this channel enables me, or makes it possible for me, to potentially monetize my services, my business coaching competencies in the future. So, example of a low barrier of entry, technology makes it possible for me to produce content, and also technology allows me to distribute and deliver this same content for free. Okay? So just an example there regarding how these two are tied together. So then moving on to, let's switch back to black. So now that we have picked an area of expertise that we are deeply interested in and willing to work for free the first year, we have an industry that has a relatively low barrier of entry. The next question we ask ourselves is that, is the market within that industry growing? Is it growing? Is it going up? Is there demand currently? And do people have money to buy? What's their purchasing power? Okay, these are all very important questions. Is the market growing? An example here, if I wanted to go into the newspaper business, print media, that would probably be a bad idea, knowing how the market is doing. Yes, there are still opportunities for sure, but overall, as an overall statement, the market is not growing, it's declining. There isn't that much demand for newspapers anymore. People are reading the same news online. There are many different news outlets today. Yes, people have money in that marketplace to pay for news, but still I believe that is going down. That's just one example. So the same questions are viable, have to be asked regardless of the market. Okay, so then going down. So we started very generic, and now we're going deeper and deeper into the nuts and bolts, into the more concrete ways of putting that business plan together. So is the market growing? Is there demand? And then people have money. The next step is we identify a problem. What comes after that? We fix that same problem, which ties this heavily back to our point number 5, which is us create unique offer. In my previous videos, I've mentioned that offer needs to be so good that it's impossible for the prospect, the potential buyer, to say no to. In the beginning, how would that go? Let's say I'm that accountant and I'm deeply passionate about tax law or whatever my expertise is within that accounting finance niche or industry. I want to be a one-person CPA accounting service provider. And I'm comfortable with the idea of working for free for the first 12 months. I understand the market. There's always plenty of demand for those services. And I believe that the people I target, they have money, market is growing. I identify a problem, I fix a problem. My unique offer could be such that I pick 5 clients. They are small business owners. I pick 5 clients. I understand the fact that I am new. Nobody knows I exist. Yes, I had that pretty good white-collar job in an accounting firm, but now that I'm a solo, self-employed, I have my own business or a side hustle, I don't have that track record. I don't have the 5-star reviews yet. So I need to prove my worth. How do I do it? I work for free. Simple option. Okay, 12 weeks, let me do everything for you. I'll illustrate, I demonstrate how good I truly am. If you're happy, sure, this is how much it's going to cost you after that. If not, no hard feelings, just promise that you will give me feedback and I'll get better. That would be the unique offer. Create an offer so good that people have a hard time saying no to you, that it's impossible to say no to your offer. What's the last, final 6th step? Market like crazy. Okay? Also from the previous videos, how much? 4 hours every day. We are small for a reason because people don't know we exist. So what do we need to do? We need to market the first 4 hours every day. The most important job. Let people know. Advertising is the process of making known. Brand is what you make known. We don't yet have a brand. We're creating a brand by advertising. You can create a brand in 3 ways. What you say, what people say, and 3, what people experience. Number 1 and number 2 about advertising, and number 3 is about product. Ultimately, your product, your brand is as good as your product. So we shoot for excellence in service and in product offering so that our brand is going to be good in the end. Anyhow, so that was my 6-step roadmap to starting a side hustle or small business, starting with trends, going deeper into the industry selection, and ultimately creating an offer and marketing it. Hopefully this was helpful. If you liked the video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. I appreciate it. Until next time, thank you.